fought in a fight with a broken arm and you kept going.
And I actually have the longest duration of any female in Strikeforce. Entered near the beginning and stayed with it all the way until it was absorbed by the UFC. And then that's when I fought Ronda. It was funny because at that time, Dana White, the president of the UFC, had been getting asked a lot, when are you going to bring women into the UFC? Dana was like, there's too many mismatches. There's not enough depth. There's not enough talent. I was like, well, you haven't seen me fight. So Dana was busy saying that women will never fight the UFC. I was like, well, somebody is going to watch me fight.
With 20 professional MMA wins to her name, Miesha Tate is known for her iconic wars with Ronda Rousey, where fans admired her grit, class, and refusal to quit. She's been a guest on the Joe Rogan Experience and served as vice president of one of the largest martial arts organizations in the world, proving her influence reaches far beyond the Octagon. Miesha is loved by fans and considered one of the toughest and most respected women in MMA history. Now, she's pulling back the curtain to expose the raw mindset of a fighter who would literally break before ever giving up.
That mental thing that made you not quit, that made you fight on, how do you see that same thing serving you again and again and again? My next guest, UFC fighter. You know what UFC is? Okay, yeah, this is where the guys in the Octagon, I said guys in the Octagon fight. Okay, well, my next guest, she's not a god, and she fights in the Octagon, and she's a UFC champion. But wait till you hear her story. She has so much to teach us. I'm telling you, she's a true champion in more than just the Octagon. So I welcome you, Miesha Tate. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Pompa. It's a pleasure to be here and look forward to sitting down and just chatting with you for the next hour.
Well, look, I said this to you. I met you a couple of times, right? And I think I know I watched one of your fights. It was the first female fight I'd have ever watched. And my immediate thought was, like, what would make a girl want to do this? I mean, get your head bashed in. I mean, your nose had broken. I think that was your first fight. But, I mean, I couldn't imagine, like, this girl, like, what is she like? And then I met you, and I was taken back. Okay, you're beautiful. You have sex appeal. You're absolutely not what I expected, okay? And so from that day forth, I was intrigued about you. As a matter of fact, when I first met you, I wanted to talk to you more. Like, I was being pulled one way, you were being pulled another, and I'm like, I want to know more about her, right? It's like, because, like, she's absolutely not what I expected. You blew me away. And then I got to meet you again, and it was a similar situation. So here we are, finally. And you are going to enjoy the conversation because you do. You have so much to offer. I mean, from mindset stuff, which blows me away. You are not average. You are not normal. And I say that in all complimentary ways. You have so much to offer because you just broke through what most people don't break through. You don't quit when most people quit. I mean, when I say that, how many men can say being punched in the head, you fought in a fight with a broken arm and you kept going? How many people would do that? I wouldn't. And I would say I have pretty toughness in me as a wrestler myself. I think I'd have been like, hey, I'm done.
I got an toughness and a little sprinkle of crazy.
Yeah, well, okay. But you know what? Okay, the crazy I don't see, but there must be some.
Just pretty much I reserve it for the Octagon.
Yeah.
Well, because it's like, that's my space where I can get wild and fiery. And, the rest of the time, I think, as you mentioned, I'm a pretty mellow person. I'm pretty calm.
I know, I could tell.
You wouldn't probably pick me as someone who enjoys doing a sport that is, requires the things that I think fighting does. But there are elements to fighting that do result in me. And it's like, if you think about it, it's like playing chess. It's very strategic.
Yeah.
It's just physical.
Yeah. No, I get that he's a wrestler. I mean, it's very strategic, right? But I'm a guy. I have aggression, right? Like, you come across like there's no aggression. Now, one of the gals you fought, Ronda Rousey, is that how you get? Like, she absolutely is what I would expect, right? I remember in an interview, like, she flipped you off, right? You sat there calmly. And I think you gained more followers from that than actually she did because you were, like, so cool as a guy who just loved you and fell in love with you, right? Okay, but let's go back. I think, like, let's dig it here because I want to know why you got into this, right? But it started as a wrestler, all boys. They had no girls. Okay, I mean, what in your childhood, you go back as far as you want, as far as you can remember, led you to wanting to wrestle boys?
So for the longest time, I looked back and I was like, I just don't think there's really something that was very clear to me that, said in my childhood that I was going to be a fighter. And maybe still not, but there's a couple instances where I think I like to fight my Barbies as much as I liked to dress them up. So I would always ask my mom to fight with me with the Barbies until one of their heads popped off. And I was like,
Wait, so this is what I don't know. Were you the only child? Your brother?
Oldest by 7 years. So my sibling, my brother didn't.
Oldest by 7 years kind of makes you a single child.
Almost. And then my sister was 15 years younger.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a big age gap. My brother and I didn't play it in the way that you would, expect, siblings that are 1, 2, or 3 years.
So your brother was 7 years old. Yeah. Well, go. So he's probably tough as nails because you started just tossing him around a bit.
It's pretty tough. Yeah. But he still says I'm tougher.
I would say that too. Okay. So nothing in your childhood really led to that. So something intuitive.
Let me say, when I went out for wrestling, I think the reason that I loved it so much is because it woke up a part of me that I felt like I needed and was missing a little bit. So if I dive back into my childhood, I think I had a bit of abandonment issues from male figures in my life. And when I look at it and I say, okay, so my biological father, I didn't know about him till I was 5. He sent Christmas.
It's interesting because you're telling my wife's story. She was abandoned in less than 1 from her father, right? She has abandonment issues, but she's a girly girl.
Yeah. Well, I think I am too, but I just stumbled into wrestling, and I think it's just a way of destiny seeking me out. It's not like I went looking for it. I wasn't violent by nature. I wasn't out fighting people. I was the first one to walk away from a conflict. I had nothing to prove. I'm mellow and kind. My mom always taught me to be kind. I still remember going to playgrounds, and I would just play like all the other kids, and my mom would be like, you should care. So do you see that little kid over there in the wheelchair? Or do you see that little kid over there that has the mental disability? Or see that little kid over there that nobody's playing with? It's like, why don't you go and talk to them? And why don't you invite them to play? And so that always just taught me at a young age to, be inclusive and be considerate of the other people that are either in the room or that are on the playground, and just look for those opportunities to share the kindness. So I again, wasn't somebody who was out there, this troubled teen. I think a lot of times you think getting into sports, but it's troubled childhood story, but it wasn't mine.
You grew up in normal childhood, obviously.
Yeah, then just, having a little shakeups there at the beginning with, my dad. And so my stepdad, who is my dad, that's who raised me, since I was 3 years old and on. But we had a big falling out when I was 13. I was just becoming this young woman, and we just didn't know how to see eye to eye. He had a very, staunch, heavy upbringing, and he was military, and he just didn't know how to deal with the emotions of a young girl, right? So we didn't even speak for barely almost 3 years. That's a crazy thing. But I remember walking to the house, and we'd have a bit of narrow hallway. We would pass each other, and we would turn so that we could just get by each other without looking at each other. And it was just, we just didn't see eye to eye. And so again, I think I felt like I was abandoned. But at that time, I didn't know what he was going through. He was going through a lot of hard things too, and so look, those things, when you are by nature a strong woman, when you don't have the strength of masculinity, I feel like you will become what you don't have. And that's my path. That's what happened for me. And I discovered it only because of wrestling. By chance, I just decided to go out for wrestling, and it's ignited a fire.
So that wrestling kind of woke up that strength didn't have, that you felt like you needed maybe as a child. Because abandonment issues create a lot of different behaviors, a lot of different feelings, a lot of different things, right? It can be different for everyone. Like I said, my wife, completely different, but she had issues from the abandonment issues.
Yeah.
And
who knows, maybe if her best friend had been like, hey, we got over wrestling, or she might have been like, well, let's go try. And you never know what would have come of that either. But just for me, that's how it worked out. I didn't think I was ever going to go out for wrestling, and it wasn't even my idea. It was my friend, Sharon. We were sitting in honors English, by the way, and she was like, do you want to go out for wrestling? It's basketball season is around. I don't play basketball. She doesn't play basketball. And the only other sport was wrestling. We just wanted to do a sport. So it was I guess there's nothing better for us. No other sport offered for women. Besides basketball, you're not going to do that. So wrestling.
And maybe there's like girls watching this who, completely relate to like wanting to do it, maybe never gone to do it. Let's talk about that. So you're enter the sport, you enter wrestling, right? Did you suck at first? Yeah. So these boys were throwing you around. How did they treat you?
Like we didn't belong. It was like they didn't get the memo. Serve it to them real quick and get them out of here. Not for, this. And I don't think they meant bad. I actually think that they just really thought that's the way it is. That's the way it was. And girls just couldn't possibly hang. So let's just fight through it.
Opposite of what's happening now, right, in today's society, where you have men entering girls' sports, which I completely disagree. How do you feel about that?
Oh, no, I don't agree. I've trained too much with men. I know the difference. And it's apples and oranges. We don't need to blend.
Absolutely. But a girl entering a man's sport, I'm like, yeah, knock yourself out. You can do. I think it's like totally different because you're coming in with a massive disadvantage, just hormonal standpoint, right? I mean, all kinds of disadvantages. So yeah, if you want to do that, go ahead.
I'll tell you what. So my first 2 years, my friend Sharon and I mostly stuck with each other. Whenever we get partnered up, would be the last two anyway. So, I mean, it wasn't like we really, very rarely, once we got accepted, once we realized like we weren't going to be ostracized from the team, like we were going to show up no matter what, then we would just always pair together. But she was a lot smaller than I was. And it wasn't until my junior year when she didn't go out for wrestling. And I thought it was going to be the worst time ever because I was like, and I still don't know how these guys are going to feel about me actually being in their groups and, wrestling with them. So I did that. It was the best thing that ever happened to me because I started to really distinctly every day understand the physical differences. And I tried to start to narrow that gap. Try to say, like, what is it that makes them better than me? Oh, when they shoot, it feels like they're blow through my hips, right? Like, oh, that's different than how Sharon shoots on me. And that's different how these other girls, like, they're not hitting me.
Because they would carry you two up all the time.
All the time. And so, I would compete against guys, but I was mostly training with her in the room, at least those first 2 years. And then that junior year was the only girl, and I was like, wow.
So you had to learn that aggression.
Yes.
That testosterone just naturally didn't get a lot of, right? Yeah. But you won, right? Because you're right. Like when, I was a wrestler, right? Shooting, it's speed. There's a force that you have to apply that. And, again, you can learn it.
Yes. Just then you can learn it, exactly. But it just didn't come naturally because I think my hormones just, doing what felt right to me. But then when I was wrestling with these guys every day, Dan, doing the drills, I think that was the biggest part because in competition, things move so fast. You don't really learn in competition. You mostly learn once you go and you're drilling. You learn how these guys move and why they're so great at what they do. And so I started to dissect it and I started to really lean into being as athletic as I could be and see what differences were between.
And then did you start to win eventually? Like when? Talk about the first time you actually beat a guy, and I feel badly for that guy.
Yeah. Oh, man.
His friends were probably teasing him. You got beat by a girl.
Yeah. The first time that I beat a guy, the rumor had it that he quit the teeth. I think he didn't wrestle anymore after that.
Yes, I remember.
It's one of those things that's like, it's a lose-lose for a guy to step out there on the mat. And for me, it was a win-win. On those occasions when that does happen, but I'll tell you what, my senior year, I actually ended up wrestling primarily varsity, not because I was that great. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but we had 2 wrestlers at 145 and none at 152. Team captain was at 145, and so was I. Didn't know how to cut weight or anything, so what I walked at. And they would weigh us both in, and then they would decide the matchups of like what's the more favorable matchup for him to be able to win, because he had a chance of winning. On varsity, I didn't, realistically. So sometimes I was weighing in at 145 and wrestling varsity 152.
Oh, that dip, by the way, people are like, what dip? That's like, see, you all weight, the weight classes dip 5 pounds.
Is a big difference. That's pounds up.
And that's why we count weight, because getting that lower weight class, it's a matter of winning or losing, like a lot.
So, but it's okay, because then my goal just became about not giving up 6 points and only giving up 5. Like, just don't get pinned. That was kind of my goal, and I got really good at that.
We wrestled the same weight class, 140 bucks.
Yeah.
I started at 127. I remember, like, that was like...
I started at 130.
Yeah.
130, 135, 140, 145.
Yeah, that's funny. What do you say? Yeah, I could have wrestled her. That'll do fun. All right, maybe not. But anyway, so okay, so you had victories, right?
And I beat all the girls that I ever wrestled except for my very, very first match ever. I lost to that girl. It was the first match I've ever had in my whole life. And there were a few stragglers throughout Washington State, which is where I'm from, that were also doing the same thing. So it was like being one of two on a team. And so what they would try to do when they would get us together for tournaments is if at all possible, even giving more weight differences, he would still try to pair the girls together. They were like giving 10 pounds or what, still more fair than typically wrestling.
So you're kind of undefeated, at least against girls.
Yeah, except for that first one, I had to start off. That's been pretty much the story of my career now that I look at it. I pretty much never got to start off with an undefeated record. Not in MMA, not as an amateur, not as a pro.
Okay, so fast forward MMA, you actually lost your first fight. So that was what, 2005?
Yep, 2005.
Okay, so fast forward to 2005. What possibly would make you want to get punched in the head?
You know, I couldn't figure that out for the life of me either because I'll tell you, when I went to my first MMA class, which I was also not excited to do, but my friend kept pestering me to go. And I was like, all right, fine. I will go and I will humor you. And on my first day, I learned how to choke people. And that was it. I was like, this is great. What is jiu-jitsu? But I didn't know anything about striking, and nor did I want to learn anything about striking. So this was just a casual club sport. I was going to Central Washington University. It was 2 days a week, and it was run by fellow students.
So I have to say this because choking, right? You said that, right? So people, a lot of my viewers have no idea what happens in UFC, MMA, right? Choking someone out is how you win oftentimes, right? It's not just punching someone into submission, although that happens. But, literally a chokehold is a legit thing where someone taps out. And so you learn how to choke someone out. Yeah. And it's like, it's a submission. And, someone submits, okay, tap out, tap out. And once you did that, that excited you about the sport.
So I learned that on my first day, and I said, this is great. And they said, do you have any interest in learning the striking? I said, no, I don't want to learn how to punch. I don't see the point in that. I don't want to hit anybody. God forbid, don't want to be hit. So funny how little you know about yourself sometimes, right? And you really think, I was very sure. I was like, no way. It's like, I would never want to do that. And then it was just a matter of like weeks later, I was at my first amateur event, and they watched live fights. And I was like, oh.
These are men fighting men?
Men fighting men. There were no women on a card. And I said, that was incredible. And I actually started to see the art in it and the beauty and the sport, not this preconceived notion, which was very common across most people. If you were to say to survey most people at that time, probably would be like, it's very barbaric. It's for brawlers. It's for uneducated people. It is for, this is human cockfighting. Big corporate sponsors wouldn't touch it. And if the UFC was around then, but it's still clamoring to get any kind of
traction. I had said this before we came on air. I watched UFC when Royce Gracie was the guy. Okay, this guy was maybe 150 pounds grappler, which is like wrestling with how would you describe grappling? A different technique of wrestling, chokehold thing.
And joint locks, yes. Yeah. Joint manipulation, large joint manipulation, arm bars. You may have the arm hyperextend any joint, basically, if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. You're tapping out.
All people like me are slightly more stubborn, and we'll just let it break.
Talk about that, because that ties you per arm, by the way. Like if you put my arm on them, like, I'm tapping, it's gonna break out. Not this girl. That's psychology we have to dig into, because I want someone. But so Royce Gracie, this guy, 150 pounds, is beating guys 200 plus pounds. I mean, they come in big fighters, boxers. This guy would fight in a gi, like a robe, if you will, and they would grab it oftentimes, and that's what he wanted. But he would fight from the ground, oftentimes from his back, and you'd think he was getting pummeled and he's going to lose because they're punching him on the ground. And all of a sudden the fight's over.
Just waiting for arm to get
exactly.
That throw his hips behind an elbow.
Yeah, and that fascinated me because I'm like, the fight's over. This guy was able to butt kick. Oh no, he was just waiting for the right chokehold. Right, his legs would come up, and all of a sudden it's like he has the guy like got a leg lock at his head, and the guy's tapping out. We're like, what? So couldn't wait for the next fight and the next fight. But so that was like the birth of UFC as far as I was concerned. Yeah, and then it kind of evolved more into punching, right? So when did you come into the sport from there?
Well, I had my very first fight as an amateur, nowhere near UFC caliber, in 2005.
Okay, that's the first fight you had, which you lost. You described that fight.
Oh, in 2008, I fought for Strikeforce, and then I got signed. And then it was 2013 when women were allowed to come into the UFC. So in 2005, mind you, when I attended that event, going back to the first amateur event, I had this visceral reaction to what I had just seen. And I just felt very live. And I was already thinking in my mind, well, if they could do that, I could do that. And I don't know why I had a thought like that.
But wrestling gave you some form of identity. It gives you something of power that you lost being abandoned, right? So it empowered you some. And you saw another level of empowerment. I mean, that's my psychology takeaway.
Two big takeaways that I took from wrestling as a young woman that really developed my character moving into the rest of my life. One is that hard work is worth it. When you work hard, it pays off. And that perception can be changed. The way that somebody meets you isn't the way that they have to remember you. So you can always work to change that. And it's kind of how my nickname is. This
Cupcake?
Yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was going to ask you, like, how did you get the nickname Cupcake? You're all
Yeah. So the nickname, that's, there was a girl that was just like, she's a cupcake. I'll fight her. Easy.
Because they look at you, I look at you right now.
No way, because at that time there still was, it was still not out there for the masses, and not very many women were doing this. And for whatever reason, the type of character and women that usually would find themselves in there had this little bit more of a masculine feel. And I didn't. So I was different, and I kind of stood out in this different way, and they singled me out as like soft and sweet.
Cupcake.
The cupcake. But that'll be an easy fight. Like, give me that girl, I'll chew her up and spit her out. And I was like, okay, well, lock me in a cage and let's see how sweet I am.
Yeah.
And that's really where the chip on my shoulder came from. I was like, okay, you know what? It used to piss me off, and now I'm just going to embrace it.
I love it. Okay, so enter your first professional fight.
Oh, amateur fight. But this was also before they protected the amateurs like they do now. So there still was the regulations, no knee pads, no elbow pads, no bigger gloves, no headgear, nothing. I mean, it was a pro fight by all regulation. It just wasn't paid. So that's the only difference. So I went out there and I fought this lady named Liz Posner, who her and her husband owned a Muay Thai kickboxing academy in BC, Canada. And so that's all I knew, that she was a striker. I'm like, okay, well, I had 3 weeks of striking training.
Yeah, punch her. I'm just tough. Yeah.
And I go out there and I take her down very easy in the first round. And I'm still pretty much just a wrestler, a very limited on the ground. I know what an armbar is. I know what a triangle choke is. I know a couple basics.
Yeah, well, without knowing that, it's hard to get someone to submit. You can't just wrestle someone to submission.
Exactly. But the problem is that I wasn't well versed in, I could hold her there, but I didn't know how to get her out of there. Because I still was such a novice. Even punching on the ground was a challenge for me because I was so used to using every limb that I had to pin someone.
Yeah, pull out a limb to punch, you're a loser.
Exactly. So I didn't really know how to do that. And I may not have even punched in the first round. I don't know. On the ground or very, very little. And then in the second round, she put me in a Muay Thai clinch, which is basically kind of like a headlock. So I'm sure you know, but for people listening, so if you take your hands, you're standing in front of somebody and you wrap your hands around the back of their head and your forearms come over the collarbone and you kind of pinch your elbows together. So you have the head stuck in this pocket. And so she was holding me there and she's like driving my head down and she begins to knee me in the face. And I didn't even know what this was, much less how to get out of it. And then crack.
Yeah. I'm holding my nose right out, but I know what this. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what's happening. So one of those knees just clean on to smash my nose. I heard it just crunch, crack, break. And I'm trying to figure out how to get out of this. I'm just diving forward, trying to get her legs.
boring out at this point. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I get to her ankles, I think, and she spins around, she gets on my back, and it's like a very visceral moment. I see the blood just pooling out of my nose, and I lost my temper. And I remember I bucked her off down to the ground. You're like when you hula hoop someone down, we wrestling, and you peel the hook off, and you kind of kick them down underneath you. And I did that, and I just started beating the daylights out of her at that point. Stood up, I was raining down punches from the ceiling to the floor, and there was just this bloody mess. And I go back to my corner, and it was like ghosts. My corner didn't know what to do, because this was a new phenomenon. Women even fighting was so rare.
That's in their minds. Oh, should we stop?
I'm a 14-year-old girl who has no clue what she was really getting herself into. I'm sure it was tough. And these are like macho men, but like very protective men. And so they actually threw the towel in for me. Never got that third round.
Yeah. I think I would have too, just because I'm like, oh my gosh, look at her. Yeah. Feeling defensive of you. I can't put her out there looking like this.
And in hindsight, it was the right decision, but I can never in my heart feel like it was the right decision.
Yeah, because you came out actually winning if you
That's the moment of fight I was born.
Yeah, I get that.
It was that moment when I was down and out and bloody, and I had a broken nose, and I found a way to come back from it and be in a winning position. So I never got that third round, but I think it was good for me because it lit a fire for me to go out.
Tapped into something in your inner being.
Yes.
It's in a lot of us in different ways, and most people don't know it's there, but you were put into a situation, fight or flight, if you will, you fought, and you tapped into something that you then perhaps had a desire to keep tapping into. Is that maybe why you went on?
Exactly. Okay. You hit the nail on the head with that one. So I had to go home. It was Christmas break. Face my grandparents who were visiting from out of town, my dad, everybody was just mortified and had all the things to say.
I was going to ask you,
Oh, yeah. They had all the things to say, oh, well, thank God she learned her lesson. Thank God it wasn't worse. Thank God she'll never do that again. And why was she ever even doing that? And this is just insane.
Because you're sitting there with the nose still, right?
But yeah, these two giant black eyes. And my nose was so swollen that there really wasn't a distinction from like my cheekbones to my nose, which is all kind of flat.
Yeah, so they were just horrified from this whole thing. But in their mind, thank God, because as a girl, she'll never do this again. And meanwhile, in your spirit, you're like, I can't wait.
Yeah, I wanted to prepare better. I just knew that it was in preparation. I was like, if you want to be good at anything, you don't do it in 3 weeks. You've got to really prepare and dedicate yourself. And I didn't know that I wanted to necessarily make a career. Well, I didn't, because the UFC was not available for women. Strikeforce wasn't even around. There was no career to make. But I just knew I wanted to at least fight again and prove to myself that I could do better than I did that time, that I could win a fight. But then you win, of course.
Yeah, I mean, so part of it was the high of what you experienced, even standing up for yourself, empowerment. And then the other part of it was something I enjoyed in sports, cycling, is the trade. Said that, right? Like, you wanted to get better, and that gave you such great purpose.
Yeah, I wanted to get better desperately. So I showed up and, rolled with guys and trained, and I cried, and I was frustrated because I was so flat-footed. I was a wrestler, and I just feel like I was getting beat up by these men. It's different. It's one thing wrestling men. It's another thing getting literally punched and beat down by men. So that was a whole challenge for me emotionally, but I love that it made me dig deep.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about this past Olympics, the guy out there, hits the girl a couple times. You just see. That's when you're like, come on. It's like that. This has to be stopped.
Yeah.
Right? So you experienced that.
Yeah, I experienced it.
What did you see? Like when you saw that, I'm sure you saw clips on television. What was in your mind?
Oh man, it's just
those girls didn't sign up for that. You know what I'm saying? Like you sign up to be an RO guys, no big deal.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is like we need just fair play. Sports are not meant to be inclusive. Very much sink or swim. By design, no, they're not inclusive. No. So, you even have cuts on teams, and that's the only sports that really don't do that, I feel like, is like wrestling and grappling and those sports, because they always need more bodies. But you can still, it's very much sink or swim. Yep. There's nobody it's not a team sport. It's not going to carry you. So by design, that's just how it's supposed to be. why it's so rewarding when you work hard and you do well.
Yeah.
Because if it was easy, if everybody got a trophy,
That's kind of the new mindset. Like, just by everyone gets a trophy. No, the whole point of it is to train to be the best. And when you're not, keep being the best, right? I mean, oh gosh.
or how about this? What if we're confusing our children about distinguishing what they're actually good at? Because if they think they're just as good at baseball, as wrestling, as guitar, as this, as that, how do they really know where they may want to go based on like, wow, this, like, I'm better at this than most people.
No, I mean, it's okay. Like, I remember saying to my kids, you suck at that, but that's okay because, there's something you're brilliant at, be great at. It's okay, right? It's like, good, you learn. You're not great at that. I'm not good at a lot of things too. It's okay to suck at certain things.
And it's okay when you read that you suck at it and want to get better. And it's also okay to recognize that this isn't for you.
Yeah, it's part of learning who you really are. Because, we create false identities in our children oftentimes, right? Poorly, like, what are you, stupid? You have false identity. But keeping them to a sport that they suck at and telling them they're good.
Just as good as
it's the same
first place. It's like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. The world needs to toughen up. So, it's like, tell you did they suck and move on to the thing they're great at. So let's find the greatness, right? Okay, so let's fast forward then. Here you are. When was your first fight in the, Strike Force, I guess, was your entry into a legit?
It was. Yeah. So Strike Force, there's Bo Dobb and Hook and Shoot. That's when I turned pro, and I had 2 fights in one night. I won my first one. I lost my second one. And then I was done with the tournament of that. And then my next fight was in Strike Force, and it was against Elena Beef Maxwell, if that tells you anything. So it was up a weight class that I was definitely brought in to lose. I had just lost actually to a kickboxer. I had been knocked out.
They did the cupcake against the beef.
Yes.
That didn't go well.
No, I didn't. I ended up putting the icing on the steak.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I didn't even get to fight a level up. It's the recipe for disaster for males. Doesn't matter, do you?
Yeah, a weight class. It was a big jump, but I got the job done. Won a decision. Then I got a contract to Strike Force, and
so you won that fight.
Yeah, so I won that one. I wasn't supposed to. It was her hometown and all that stuff, but I did, and they signed me. I was actually had the longest duration of any female in Strike Force. Entered near the beginning and stayed with it all the way until it was absorbed by the UFC. And then that's when I fought Ronda. So I was the champion.
During the days, and now we're like 2012.
Yeah, 2012. Yep. And I had fought Marlies Kunin. I won in I think a 4th round arm triangle choke. And then I fought Ronda. And it was funny because at that time, Dana White, the president of the UFC, had been getting asked a lot, what are going to bring women into the UFC? Because Gina Carano and Cyborg headlined an event for Strike Force, and their numbers were crazy. It was insane. Then Gina left, and Cyborg kept fighting, but here Dana was like, there's too many mismatches. There's not enough depth. There's not enough talent. I was like, well, you haven't seen me fight yet. And I remember thinking that. And I was like, gosh, it seems so arrogant to say that, but it really wasn't coming from a place of arrogance. It was coming from that 15-year-old girl that learned from the beginning of one season to the end. And then by the end of my career as a wrestler in high school, I won the coaches award. Right? So this team was just like, didn't think I belonged, didn't want recognizing me as like the one wrestler on the team that embodies.
Yeah, you learn to start from the bottom. You learn to fight on when you weren't supposed to be there. You learn toughness.
Yeah. So Dana was busy saying that women will never fight the UFC. I was like, well, somebody is going to watch me fight and I'll change his mind. He just had that. I put it out there. And then lo and behold, it was the fight with Ronda. He was sitting there, and Lorenzo was sitting there, and they watched the fight. And
it was a good
fight. It was a great fight. And there was a story to it. I think that's what women's boxing has been missing. I think the good old boys in boxing.
Tell me the story.
The chance, So Rob and I just had this huge rivalry. We couldn't stand each other from the get. Very different people.
Yeah. Why do you think she hated you so much?
I think she hated a lot of people, but I was just the one to say something about it.
She's the one that flipped her off.
No, I didn't like the maltreatment, and I didn't like her arrogance in the score. I even thought, great, you can be great. You don't have to be an ass. That's not a requirement. But in hindsight, I'm grateful that I had somebody who was there like her to oppose me, to not only elevate me and my entire career and make me better as a fighter and as a woman, but to elevate the entire score.
Now, you went on to lose that fight against her, and tell that. That's the one where you broke your arm. You wouldn't tap out. So I bet you fought the fight.
Yeah. So Ron is a Olympic medalist, bronze medalist in judo. So she was, very talented, very slick with her takedowns. And I was a takedown specialist as well, but just, coming from high school wrestling, it didn't have the level she did. So I go out there, I'm hitting her, and I crack her a few good times. And then she throws me, she tries to get an armbar. I get out, we get back to our feet. I'm hitting her again, and she throws me down again. And, she's, moving through these different positions, and I'm fighting my way out. I'm getting out. And then eventually she gets the armor. It's been too off.
Bars, literally.
You want to know what it feels like? If your pointer finger, you put your other pointer finger on the tip of it, just bend it back as far as you can until that middle joint feels like it's going to snap.
And you feel ligaments tearing. That's a great example. Yes, that's what.
So anybody can, test that a little bit, and that's not a good feeling. But I just refused to tap. And she had the armbar dead to rights, and all of a sudden I hear, well, it was at the joint. The bone didn't break. Fortunately, just the joint. So I hyperextended the joint. I tore.
Yeah, that's worse.
Yeah, it is a longer recovery, actually. The bone intake heals faster. Yep. So the soft tissue damage was worse. But I grade 2 and 3 tears of the bicep and tricep, and then I tore. Actually, what I was told is that is it tendons that connect the ligament, the bone, the things that.
Ligaments connect bone to bone, tendons, muscle.
Okay, so I avulged the tendons from the bone. Actually, they took a chunk of bone with them, which is actually
that's an avulsion fracture.
There you go. Yes, that's what they said. You avulged. Yeah. And see, I'm not a doctor, but they were like, but the good news is that since the bone is actually in a chunk and hanging on to the end of them, then it'll grow back.
Yeah, so that's an easier way to actually connect it.
Exactly. So my body was actually able to put those back into place, as opposed to having surgery. So lucky it did rip clean off, even though it sounds more disgusting. Mm-hmm. It actually healed up pretty well.
Yeah, as long as it heals cleaner.
Yeah. So that was that.
Yeah. So, what's going through your mind when your arm is bent and you're not so why weren't you tapping off?
Didn't want to give up. I wasn't prepared.
Was it a lot because of the hatred between you two? And you were not going to let this girl beat you?
I just didn't want to lose. I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to lose. And so it
cupcakes
went backwards 90 degrees the wrong way.
And how did Dana White, was Joe Rogan in the audience in that one?
Yeah, I know. So
how did he describe that? Because
he was just like, she is just tough as nails. I've heard Dana say, she was born to be a fighter. Yeah. She was born to be. And so.
Again, when you meet her, it's not even on my radar that, you are. But
that date, he called me maybe 2 weeks after, and I was, kind of mourning this injury. And I was like, Dana White's, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to save his number. I think one of his assistants had reached out and said, hey, Dana's going to call you this time. And I was like, I was so nervous. I didn't know what Dana was going to say. He gave me a $50,000 bonus. And then he told me that women were you did good. And with women, we're going to come to the UFC.
Yeah. And that there started. When you were when you first turned professional, what were you getting paid? What were the fighters getting paid? Is that $500?
That was on CB was just winning a lot.
What did you get paid for that fight?
I met it at 10.
Okay. So to get that 50,000, that's the world right there.
World. My first professional fight was $500. When I went to Strikeforce, I think I got 1,000 to show and 500 to win. And then when I got my first contract, it was something like 2,000 to show, 1,000 to win, and kind of like bump up at 500 or 1,000 increments, something like that. So it was not much considering you'd spent all this, well, I lived in a 22-foot RV for a couple years because I couldn't afford the luxury of living life if I wanted to dedicate myself fully to this sport. And I'll be honest, I was on food stamps. I didn't work. I just fought, and I cooked every day out of that RV, and I was on the property, Dennis Holden's property at Victory Athletics, and it was just a glorified barn with padded balls. Yeah.
All you were doing is train.
All I was doing was train, just like a mad and day and night, all the time, every day.
Were you learning about the importance of nutrition for recovery? Was that part of this learning yet, or did that come later?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I kind of knew, but I realized how little I knew. You think you eat broccoli and like, you think that's healthy, but yeah, still. If it comes to our box, it's not healthy. That's my opinion now. So.
Yeah, now it's good. We've called.
Oh, come on.
There, we'll talk about it. But, okay, so then you end up with a rematch a year later or so?
Oh, gosh, yeah. We did. When did we do our rematch? It was in 2013. It might have been 15.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 years.
I don't know why I was thinking it was like 13 or something.
Yeah, we had 13, 14. Yeah, it was around 14. Okay, 14, 15. 14, probably.
Yeah. And so what transpired in between that? Here you are facing her again, because in between that was a lot of animosity still, right? Was that in between there somewhere?
Which one?
But I don't know, the one where she flipped you off and...
Oh, so yeah, we actually coached the Ultimate Fighter against each other. And that was in 2013.
What does that mean, Coach? The
Ultimate Fighter was a reality show that they would do, and they would put 16 fighters in a house and put them all together. And we were the coaches, though, so we didn't have to live. But we had our teams fighting each other. And so we would see each other daily.
So they chose you guys for that because of the, the animosity. Oh, okay, got it. All right, so then here's the rematch. What's going through your mind? Are you nervous? Like, tell me your thinking and what you did for that.
So I was trying to evolve, but didn't really have the tools, just like the blind leading the blind. And my first match with her, what I realized is I was so emotional. I was so emotional that I thought it was to my detriment, that I went out there so fierce and fiery that I just wasn't minding my P's and Q's, and I put myself in bad situations, and I lost. So I thought the second time around to try to swing the pendulum to the other side. Let's not be emotional at all. Let's be very level-headed and chill and let everything that she says and do just like roll it off your back. It's not going to bother you. But then I felt kind of flat, if you will. I don't feel like I had the same fire. So I think there was somewhere in the middle that probably would have been the best grounds for me. But you only get one shot to figure it out. I'll get 15 minutes or 25 minutes if it's a title fight, but that's it. All the rest of the time, you're just hoping got it right.
You choose, use your words that, become better, not better through the situation, right? After that, where did it lead you? And then you ended up being UFC champion. So kind of after that loss, because after that loss, I'd have probably quit. I'm serious. I'd have been like, yeah, I'm done. You know what I mean? I took my best stab at it. I'm done. You didn't. And that was smart because you ended up champion.
Yeah. I part of me wanted to just crawl under a rock and die. Like, I was just so defeated. But again, every time that I've learned about hitting that rock bottom, that there's always like more that you can gain from that. So even though it sucks, it's necessary part of evolution. And I kind of think I knew that deep down. So even though it was really difficult and I hated everything about it in that time, I also began to work through it and become stronger for it, to be like, I'm going to persevere and I'm not going to give up. And, then Holly beat Ronda, in Australia. And I was like,
That beat Holly.
And you know, there's my chance. That's a perfect style matchup for me. You know, I struggled with Ronda because I was a takedown specialist, so I would connect to her, and she would get the better of that exchange. It might be at that time that it was very difficult to find anybody that was that high level in judo that was also doing MMA that was my size. Good luck with them being a female.
Yeah.
Just really wasn't. Was hard to get trained partners. So you get like these wrestlers that would try hip toss you, but they're not doing that with the skill set that an Olympic medalist has.
That mental attitude thing that made you not quit, that made you fight on. How do you see that same thing serving you again and again and again post MMA?
Absolutely. There's all areas of MMA.
I studied 3%ers. These are the people who, you're a 3%er. Yeah. People who change the world. People are they just do it. And it comes down to them making a choice, saying, you know what, I'm not going to die. I'm going to live on. I'm going to do this. Was it just a choice? I mean, but sometimes those choices are hard to make. How'd you make the choice?
You know, I think part of it is not giving yourself another choice. It's like, that is the only choice. It's like, there is no other option. There is no other choice. Even though you know that there is, in your mind, there's not. There's only one choice, and it's up and on.
It was fight on. So then when did you fight Holly for the championship? What was the date on that?
That was in 2016.
Okay. And then you won. How would you describe that fight?
The whole fight was kind of symbolic of my career. I feel like I lost the first round. I had a 10-8 second round, really dominant. So that means like very dominant from bell to bell. Normally it's a 10-point must system. One person gets 10 for the round. The other person gets 9 for the round. I got a 10. She got 8. Like that's how you dominate that round was. And that's huge because they don't give 10-8s very often. Then she won again the third round and the fourth round narrowly, but she edged me. She kind of like outpoint me in the striking. She'd stay away. I wasn't able to close distance. In the fifth round, I remember just thinking, I have to throw all caution to the wind, and I have to risk getting knocked out. I have to risk just running right into the head kick, but I got to get a hold of this woman. I have to get her to the ground. And my coach, Robert Follis, told me that if you get her down, you put that kind of pressure on her that you can, she's either going to fold under your pressure or she's going to make a mistake getting up. And she made a mistake getting up. She tried to fight through it and get up and on too. She has that similar mentality. It's like, I'm not going to stay down here. I'm going to get up. And I was able to latch onto her neck, and I got that choke in, and I was like a dog on a bone. And she tried to throw me over the top of her, and I just hung on to her. So we both ended up flipping, kind of. But I hung on. Yeah, then 6 seconds later, she was unconscious.
Yeah, so she do have chances. You had such a grip on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure the blood.
Well, it takes you. It cut off the carotid.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I say, because there was like a lot of struggle when you're up, a lot of the blood had already left her head, so she didn't have a chance to tap out. But yeah, that was a victory. Okay, on a high note now, you're champion. Where does that take you next?
Well, it was interesting because I had convinced myself that success equaled happiness.
That I wanted to get there. Yeah, I just got goosebumps because it's not what happened, man.
And I think this is all too common when we don't really prepare people that it's not what you do. It's the work that you do on yourself. You have to bring yourself along in this journey. You can't forget to listen and be connected with yourself, because once I saw behind the curtain, I mean, at first it was great. It was probably great for maybe like 2 weeks. And then, boom, the all of it kind of just wears off, and you're like, wait a minute. I still feel really heavy, and I'm still really sad, and I'm still in the exact same position that I had really convinced myself that it wouldn't be the case if I was just a world champion.
And by the way, people do this with financial success, whatever it is they're chasing. And one day they have to stop and realize, hold on a second, I'm chasing something that's not going to give me the happiness fulfilled. So what did?
Yeah, well, I still hadn't connected the dots on that one. So I thought, well, I just need to fight again, because every time I fight, it fixes it, right?
Yes.
Well, it was like fixing the symptoms, but not the root cause.
Yes.
Like modern medicine today.
Yeah. I mean, you'd say it's the same with drugs, alcohol, right? It's just healthier, I guess, right? It's, you weren't doing that, but really it's the same thing. Chasing something that temporarily helps you.
It was a sick addiction in a way.
Yeah, no. Sorry.
And sport can be great in a lot of ways, but it can also be just as detrimental.
Listen, I have friends, they're addicted to endurance sports. The next thing, the next time, it's, 7 continents. It's bump, 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 bump. It's like, I see where it's going to head. It's going to head to emptiness. Lack of not real true identity. It's not really what God created you to be type thing. So you're in that.
Lacking purpose.
Well, I mean, your purpose was training. Your purpose was this. Your purpose was that. But when it becomes purposeless, that's when you're in trouble.
And there wasn't really real depth in that. I think that you find the most meaningful purpose in connection. The connection with self, connection with spirit, connection with others. When you have that, you feel pretty purposeful and you have an opportunity to make a difference in other people's lives, which is very fulfilling. And when you're on this journey of like, I've just got to do this for my security, whether it's financial or whatnot, you can lose yourself so easily in that. And that's what I had done. I began identifying as a fighter and as a winner and a loser. And it's really hard to base all of your worth on a single night's outcome. And that's what I basically had done. And so
you would say that wasn't really your true identity after all. Yeah, it was something you became good at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love a lot of things that I gained from it, but I had potentially at that point lost so much more. And I had to realize, and once I saw behind the curtain, just like in The Wizard of Oz, like, it's all, like, I was like, this is not fixing anything. This is not real. This is an illusion. And I said, well, but if I just fight again, I'm sure I'll be happy. Maybe I just need to defend the belt once, right? Well, I didn't. I lost the belt, and then I lost again. So I lost 2 times in a row. And by the time...
That's the day now.
We're moving into 2017. And by the time I lost that second fight, I was a show of a person. I lost that fight, and I thought...
Because you were going through this, you probably weren't even fighting with the same figure.
No. It was like an out-of-body experience. I don't even remember the fight. I was not present. And that was a skill set that I think I had developed to keep myself able to do what I was doing, was being like a robot, very disconnected from how I feel, because that didn't matter to me, objective. It's like being a soldier or something. It's like, well, here's the objective, and how you feel about it doesn't matter, so tuck it down deep. Don't address it, don't deal with it, just shove it down. But eventually, it's as exhausting as trying to keep a beach ball under the water. So eventually, that all came kind of spilling out on me. And when that happens, it's just like being on thin ice, and the weather's getting warmer. It's like you're going down. You're going down hard. And I remember contemplating whether I should continue even living, or whether...
That's when you really hit deep depression.
Yeah, I mean, I had been in a cloud. I had been in a depression for a while. It's just that I had found that when I win, it was like this temporary high and fix and this dopamine. So it was chasing that. Yeah. Just the same as like a drug addict or same thing.
Yeah.
And it was fixing nothing because I hadn't done the work myself. I had left that little girl, the core of who I am, in the dust somewhere. And I said, what you think and feel doesn't matter. And so I had to retire because I said, I'm going to have to change everything if I want something to try. Right? What's the definition of insanity? Is doing the same thing over and over and expecting it over every result. So as hard as that was, I left the toxic relationship. I actually left the relationship before my last fight, where he was still there and made things very difficult. And the last fight, I was like, okay, that's not going to work. I need to leave everything behind, pack up my car, and I just left.
So you left a relationship, you left fighting.
All of it.
Left it all behind.
I was scared to death.
To what?
That was the question.
Yeah.
To what? I don't know. I was like, I have no idea.
Where did you just drove off to what? Like, where were you going?
I was in Vegas, and I said, I'm just going to head west. And for some reason, the ocean sounded like calling to me. And that's what I was trying to do, was like figure out what other things make me feel good, alive, speak to me.
So you were on a search. I mean, on a search.
Yeah, I was on a soul searching journey. So it's my little Chihuahua scooter with me, and he was my buddy, and we just went, and I slept on the beach, and I drove up the coast, and I just started to try to connect with all the people that I had isolated myself from, all the family. Because when you're in sport, one thing that's different is like, You miss weddings,
Yeah.
birthdays,
Yeah, of course.
miss holidays, you miss all of.
Yeah, it's a very selfish life that you have to live,
We
really.
don't really have kids late, if at all.
Yeah.
Especially for females. So it's just like I just hadn't found that other purpose yet of connecting with people. And so it was like having a little tiny pinhole in a pitch black room. It's just, you don't know what's over there, but it's all you got. And you're just going to head towards that light and hope that it gets bigger. And that's really where I was at. I was just trying to figure out how to get through such a dark time.
So how did you get through it?
I think connecting to God and myself, which had this interesting philosophy.
As you mentioned, connections is where you find purpose and fulfillment. That's the connecting to God truly is the ultimate connection of finding out where our true identity really is, because He created us.
And I'm exploring this still. I don't think I've hit a finalized idea of what this concept is, the relationship with God, but I don't exactly see it the way the most organized religion would have you, or it's like, God is here, very superior, and there's a lot of times fear mongering, there's tithing, there's these things. And I feel like God is here always, and that everything that I am and do is a direct representation of God. So it's like we are more like working synergistically as opposed to me working to like get back or to go there in the afterlife. And I also feel like the degrees of separation between me and you, or, someone's children and my children, is like so small, that degree of separation, because we're all working on the same energy circuitry as like that is God to me, as like that energy that works through all of us is God in total. And it's a work in progress for me to try to understand.
Have you dug into the scriptures?
I dug it a little bit, but I'm certainly not well versed, but I've begun reading the Bible, and I'll open it, and I still go to church and invest. Just don't always.
I kind of didn't agree at all. I mean, I was raised Catholic, and I became agnostic because I saw the do's and don'ts and people like looking at people around me going, man, I want nothing to do with that, right? And then I literally got into a debate that wasn't an argument because it lasted a couple weeks about religion. And I'll save the details on all that. But I literally, in the debate, this was going on because we worked together. And he said, you hadn't read it, so you make arguments you really don't know a lot about. And I did take debate in college on that. He would have won the debate. So out of my own arrogance, I started literally reading the scriptures. I asked somebody, like, where would I start? Because I was clueless, right? And he told me, start in John and just read through the New Testament, right? So that's what I started doing, right? And something miraculous happened. I literally was like, no one told me this. It had nothing to do with about being good enough. It was about Jesus dying for me, right? Because I can never be good enough. And then His Spirit comes in you, right? And then He changes you. I'm not trying to change myself anymore. My whole world changed, all because of my own arrogance of trying to win an argument. And He's watching this transition happen. Long story said, God saved my butt. The sinner like in it.
The thing is, like, God meets you where you are. And if you ever walk into a church and they expect to, you to be something different or more, I just would question, is like probably not the right place. I feel like you should be able to walk in as you are, imperfect, lost, and broken, and God will meet you where you are.
Well, look, the fact is we're all sinners, and the fact is we will all fail, and that's why Christ came, right? So, I mean, it transformed me, because again, if it was about do's and don'ts and trying to be good enough, like, most every religion in the world, I'm out. I'm done.
I know we didn't start this to get into religion, but I have one question for you. Like, you're pretty, educated on the topic. Is, do you believe at all that God could have or be evil in any way? And the reason I say that is because, and this is like, it makes my heart almost race to even question it, right? It's like, it makes me nervous, but
No, but I think every question is valid.
It's valid because God created everything. It all stemmed from Him. It all came from Him. And even in the Bible, there are some things that God does. It's like, ooh, that was merciless. Like that was mean. Like, is that like, we're not allowed to do that. That would be a sin. You can't just murk people. But if you think about it, if comprehensively everything that ever exists on this entire planet comes from God, then God must also have and be, in part, evil.
Yeah, I would say no. But he created his creations with enough free will that was a potential, right? Of course, long before humans, there was the angels and the fallen angels, right? And out of that came Satan, etc. He's so divine and purposeful that we'll probably never truly understand. That's why this is such a good question. But his nature cannot be. But he could create something that absolutely could, right? And the fact is again, we're born into sin. This is part of his plan.
But like, what about like the flood? Like,
yeah, but think about it. Here's what I'm going to say. This will absolutely not sit well with trained people. Okay. We were born into sin. So therefore, as is our creator, he has the right to say, I'm going to do away with all that I created. Because look what it has evolved into. Because I allowed them with the ability to choose right and wrong, look what they chose. So the point is the flood was that starting over. But you thank God, here's the thing. Thank God he chose some to carry on a plan, right? So he chose this group to carry on something but that ability to choose right and wrong, right? But he had an ultimate plan. Because we can't be good enough, because we're now born into sin, now he had a plan to give his son as a sacrifice. So that is the ultimate save. It's like, and that's the thing, we deserve death, but thank God he's given life. Paul, who wrote 3/4 of the New Testament, right? Romans chapter 7, 8, 9, he struggled in his own sin. This guy was the Pharisee of all Pharisees, meaning he would say that I was more righteous than A. I had the ability in my discipline to be more righteous, follow all the laws of Moses. And he was known for that. And now here he is, knocked on his butt, and now he's a Christian, right? And he's still struggling in his deep sin. He's still struggling. The fact that he struggles in these sins, right? So in his mind, he's even worse. Sinner of all sinners, he would say about himself. And then he ends with, thank God there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Meaning, thank God he saved my butt, right? But yeah, he also, in that Romans 9, he talked about God in his sovereignty. You created some for his destruction and some for his glory. Thank God he chose some for his glory. Otherwise, he in his divineness, he could wipe out everyone and start absolutely again. But he chose some for his glory. It's little about us.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, and it's so interesting to really dive into this stuff and get interesting, and I definitely, I digress a little because I know that maybe he's not, but he created enough free will to where the choice was
absolutely
theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he created just enough free will. He gave us just enough free will. But here's the thing. We have free will. We can go out and I've stepped away from his will. Again, I'm a sinner saved by grace, right? And you get out here. This promise is he'll work all things for good for those who love him, those who are called according to his purpose. And he brings us lovingly back. Bad things happen. Discipline happens, just like a good parent. I'm going to discipline my kids when they're out here because I'm going to teach them. And it's us coming out and him disciplining us, allowing the bad things to come because we do the bad thing. And we come back to his will. We come back to his will. And hopefully, we keep getting less and less out. Yeah. I can tell you in my older age, that's been the case. It's like you learning to walk with it. It's called sanctification. We're justified with the blood of Christ, meaning we're made, sinless in his eyes. And then we're sanctified, meaning he makes us more like Christ. He makes us better as time goes on. And I could claim of nothing of my own effort. He just changes you.
I have this beautiful saying in my bathroom that it's like the one thing I asked my mom, guys, can I have that? I always loved it. And paraphrasing it basically it's called footprints in the sand. Okay. Yeah. So it's like there's, one set of footprints and, the child of God is basically like, where were you? There's one set of footprints. Like, where'd you go? He's like, my child, I've been carrying you.
Both of us have had a lot of knockouts. You're more physically.
Right.
Yeah. I've had some hard things in my life, that looking back, he was always there. He was always there. Taught me in it. He brought me this far. And I can claim nothing of my own doing. Every religion in the world is making you strive to be something or something. No way. If it's all heaven,
More than that.
it was all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
That gives hope for everybody. Because, it's so hard for people to look at the son of Sam. He was a guy who murdered all these people. And in jail, he comes to Christ and realizes, that's hard for people. But remember the murder on the cross next to, there's two, right? One that was still stuck, in his anger, and the other one was like, don't forget about me. And today you'll be with me, right? He was a murderer too. It's like, there's hope for everybody. And that's the good thing. It doesn't matter how bad our life was, how many people you did this to, murdered down there, is literally hope for everyone in Christ. It was not about us being good enough. It's about what he did for you.
He's already paid.
That's it. That's the hope, man. I love stuff. Good. So here you are, your life changed, 2 kids now. So when did that happen? Because you actually started, I think you had kids in between that. Coming out of depression.
So God gave me breath again, and the connection of the self and the connection with others. Okay. And then I, met my fiance, Johnny, amazing man. And I never thought that I wanted kids. So when I met him, I was like, I definitely want kids. And so I have 2 and I'm 7 and 5. And yeah, and there's just beautiful, amazing little lights in my life. And I found purpose again in that. I found another purpose. I'm like, these little beings, they're just like, they're depending on me for everything. It's amazing, the beautiful process. So they help me elevate it, because I really believe that my ceiling is there for putting them up on that. And someday when I leave this world, I want to know that I put my ceiling as high as possible. So it's like they have that best start in life. So they've motivated me to be the best that I can be in the world. And that's, why I've gotten into wellness, and why I've gotten into the longevity, and why we met at the Biohacking conference. I mean, in large part is the dedication to my family and kids to be the best that I can for the longest as I can. So yes, I retired for 4 years. I moved to Singapore. I lived there for 1.5 years. Was 9 months pregnant. And I said, I'm going to fight again. Because I...
That was in 21 though.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2021, you came back.
Fight again.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think that was? Meaning, you found purpose in children. Here you had a child. Was it almost like this testable
byproduct of healing? That's what it was. It's a byproduct of healing. Yeah. And I thought, my God, my whole career, I've just done this in spite of. I did it in, the most toxic situations possible, and it was always in spite of the adversity, and because of, and I was gonna be better, and I thought because the harder that it was, the better. It's like, I'm actually healing from this, and I feel like a better person. I want to see what I can do with that. And I got the opportunity in December of 2023 to shake the hand of the woman who is the best version of me inside the Octagon. And that's me,
Now, yeah. That's our right up there.
Yeah, she's the best that, I realized that I'll probably ever be. It was that moment in time when it all came together, and it was synergistic, and it was beautiful.
But who was that? Meaning, describe that yourself.
Yes, that woman, but, someone who had found balance in life, someone who had spiritual connection, self-connection, value and purpose outside of, I was no longer...
More you true.
Exactly. I was no longer outcome-based. I was effort-based. How much am I going to put into this? And that determines my value. Not the still light or outcome. That's either here or there. I just want to know how great I can be. Because for so long, I limited myself from being my best because I was so afraid of losing.
That's
so afraid of losing that I handicapped myself. I'd rather play it safe and barely win than go out there and beat the greatest and put it all on the line and maybe lose in a big way. And it wasn't until I moved through that and I unpacked it, I said, okay, we're going to let go of the outcome because that no longer defines you. You have purpose in this area, another. You're a wife. You're adopted. You have connection, purpose, and it's spirituality about you that doesn't matter if you lose. Nothing changes. Nothing changes the next day about the core of who I am. Where, before that was just the complete opposite. It was like my whole world would be upside down if I lost a fight. And just realizing that took this weight off my shoulders. And I said, I got to do that. But in that fight, I tore two ligaments in my knee. You see this scar? Yeah. So, but I think maybe that
You won the fight.
I did.
Okay.
I won. Yeah, it was 10-8 rounds, and the third round going back into 10-8.
Is it worth?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it was worth it. Absolutely, I wouldn't change that. But I battled really hard to get back from this. I spent about 14 months off the mat, and then I took a fight right away as soon as I was clear. And it was a great fight. I went out there with the intention of just don't let it be a slow fight. He's been off the mat for a long time, but physically just past the with an injury like this, past the prime, the knee is never going to be the same. And I just have to kind of face that. And that's okay, because sometimes I feel like these things happen. It's like that was probably, honestly, like the spirit way of telling me that was it. You've done it.
And, and left you with a remembrance.
It did.
So that,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I can look at this with a reframe. It's like, okay, well, it doesn't serve me in the sport moving forward, but it gave me a clear indication, and I got to do what I came here to do. Now let's start pouring myself into the next chapter.
Exactly. So what's the next chapter look like? I mean, you're able to take everything you've learned and impact, obviously, yourself. That obviously now you have an opportunity to impact many others, and you are. I mean, on different shows and things of that sort. So what does it look like? What's the new thing?
Well, I had a podcast. It's called Built for Growth.
Yeah.
And
How did they fuff it?
you can, all the business is just Built for Growth. You can also find on my website, mieshatate.com. The newsletter there. Don't spam me, I promise. And I write it myself. It comes from my heart. That's why it's sporadic. You won't get it every week or every 2 weeks. Sometimes I aim for every 2, but sometimes it's less because I need to feel something impactful to want to share that. By any fake accounts or thinking Instagram and all those good things. But that podcast is near and dear to my heart. It is a passion project for me. And my coach I mentioned earlier, Robert Follis, he took his own life. He passed away, from suicide. And he always said that change is inevitable, growth is optional. And I said, wow, that's something that's always stuck with me, because for a long time
Change is inevitable, but growth you have to choose.
Yes, you have to choose it. And that is why I call the podcast Built for Growth. You'll see what, someday I'd love for you to be a guest on it.
Yeah, loved it.
You have this little teddy bear, and it's with every podcast, and it is made from his flannel. And it's just symbolic of his energy being there, carrying me forward into this podcast and choosing growth, because it's powerful. And
Do you have any regrets that now we know, with what you know now, that we could have helped him more? I mean,
of course.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, I know that this wasn't something that he didn't think through very thoroughly. He was a very intelligent man. And of course, I can never, ever condone suicide, but I can find peace in knowing that that is the decision that he wanted and he made. And I miss him terribly. But I had to take that and make what I can positive out of it. Yeah. Right? I'll take it and carry on his legacy the best that I can. And so he motivated me.
Yeah.
To grow and evolve and be the best version of myself.
God's going to take everything you've been through, if he already is, and use it to impact so many people. And now you have a platform that. And that's the woman I saw.
Shout out to Biggs as I'm opening up the Next Health in Las Vegas. So that'll be great. Wellness Center. That's going to be Q1 in 2026. I'm partner in it. And I've got a certification in behavior change psychology. I don't usually work up people one-on-one. I like to impact the masses. But if you listen to the podcast you hear, I, geared my social media more towards how do we make lasting change?
Yeah. Now you've done it, and that's why, you become the expert in it. I wish we'd had more time to talk about some of the biohacks that you do. Do you still do cold baths? What do you do?
Oh, you know what, Dr. Pompa? Cold baths are the one that I struggle with. If I had a kryptonite, it would have to be that one. I'm an advocate. I love the way that I feel afterwards. It's the hardest thing for me to do.
I actually am I don't think it's as good for women as people.
I love the fact that...
And that's people out of this study.
Yes, I love it when the research comes out. I'm seeing...
And the fact that you hate it, it's probably for a reason, right? Well, no one likes being in a cold. And see, it only works if you adapt. Everybody feels good coming out. Okay, but question is do you adapt?
If I am going to do it, I will only do it certain times in my cycle. And usually I do it more. I don't do it that.
See, if everyone were that smart, because you see, then if you're doing it more or certain times your cycle, you're considering the fact that it only works if you adapt. So you're increasing your ability to adapt. I hope everyone just heard that. Yes.
So I don't do it the week before my cycle. And the progesterone is there. And then I feel like more like, hey, start things like, yeah, cool. I'll hop in a cold shower.
Jeez, that was a great thing. I agree with everything you just said there. So, and obviously you're in more into nutrition, probably because, you've been hit in the head a few times. Kind of have to,
Actually, I got to make up for it on the back end.
Yeah. Here we talk. We'll talk more about that on the next show. But what a blessing. I thank you for being here. Everyone needs to follow this Rose. Check out her podcast and everything she does on social media, because look, you don't go through what she went through and not be someone that is going to you're taking people over here. And that's why people need to follow you.
Okay, so I appreciate that.
Yes.
That is the mission.
Yeah, you're doing it. So another great episode. I'm Dr. Pompa, podcast from pain to purpose. And her purpose is great, but it came out of a lot of pain that she chose often.
I'm a glutton for punishment.
Anyways, always share, like the episodes. We're taking a message to the world. And so are you, Keisha. Thank you.